We started our collaboration in 1998 at a time when communication and photography was really going through a complete transformation. We called it the digital revolution, and a renaissance period where things were changing, and the traditional aspect of making images, in my eyes, was, changing somewhat. So I went back to London after having spent 6 months in Cape Town in 1997 making a film and walking the mountains, and I must say that Cape Town's an incredibly special place. And I came up with this concept that the ego was at fault with everything, and that collaboration was the way forward. And 18 years later, I'm still doing it, so there must be something.
Yeah, unfortunately, he met me. Right, so let's show you a bit of our work.
Myself and Nick started in the early 90s, probably way before most people got onto computers. And through the process, an image used to take 2 to 3 days to even move something around a screen or do something with an image. And myself and Nick decided to kind of, join forces because we could see what was coming in terms of the image-making process. It was going to get bigger, it was going to get more complex, and the mediums were certainly going to evolve as they are at such a rapid pace today. So by joining forces, we kind of started a studio, which was like a big sort of shed for myself and Nick, and we'd go down every day and, traditionally think about images and think about photography, but at the same time, we would constantly be thinking about how we could reinvent the language, how we could use what was available to us to combine craft and the digital. And by combining those elements, our pursuit was always to find the visual emotion within that and to explore the parameters of what contemporary image making actually stood for. At the beginning, I don't think we really knew what we were doing, but what was important was that we were there every day from 8 in the morning till 10, 12 at night, just looking at stuff and making stuff so that we could kind of forge and create and evolve the language that today has become a very common ground. Image making is very common today, where there are teams of people, and the process has evolved into that. Within our sort of creative handshake, we've always had a very, very deep fascination with popular culture, and popular culture has always fed back into certain aspects, whether it was fashion, the themes that come in fashion, from hair and makeup to styling, to music, popular culture, which really is at the core of what we do. It drives a lot of what inspires us to do what we do. And, these subjects and these fascinations and this sort of process that we forged and formed ultimately became our language. These are some of our earliest pieces that we made together. And you can see they really are quite experimental in terms of every image actually always began with a photograph, and it always began with a preoccupation to how we would light that. And one of the big things that we were experimenting with at the time, we still do, but we'd sort of got really bored with traditional mediums, so we kind of parked everything aside and said, well, if we use alternative light sources from laser to projection to build in light. In the early days, LED today, you can buy anything off the street, but 18 years ago, we were commissioning electricians and technicians to build LED modules for us that we could use as light, that we could explore mediums with, that we could create the type of images you're looking at right now. They were, in mine and Nick's eyes, revolutionary because of their process. Not only because of the light, but because of the teams and because of how we were ultimately image processing them or ending up at an end result. We were quite successful, very early on in our career. We had a lot of great breaks, and a lot of people recognized what we were doing very early on and allowed us to, find a very quick marriage between art and commerce. And I think that's really important. And it's not that we're here today to talk about that relationship, because actually I think what's more important for me and Nick is our process and the collaborations that have come through our process. So early on, we'd done a whole bunch of work, and we got this call from Paris to go and meet the creative director of Issey, Miyake, which at the time was still being produced by Irving Penn. And we were like, wow, this is a big sort of deal. So we got on a train and went to Paris, and it was monumental. We did 3 days of meetings with the Japanese. They made us stay 2 nights in Paris and completely dissected our portfolio, our language, us as characters. They want to know who our wives, our girlfriends. It was a complete 3-day interrogation. And at the end of it, they said, we'd love you to start to produce our campaigns for us. So Mr. Irving Penn is no more going to, he's not going to make the campaigns anymore, and we'd like you to start producing the campaigns. For myself, personally, that was like one of the biggest accolades or achievements that I could ever imagine achieving, because growing up and starting my career as a photographer, Irving Penn was an absolute legend, and he was someone, I knew the work and I knew the campaigns, and I sort of had to pinch myself going, well, we working with Naoki Takazawa, who had taken over from Issey Miyake, and we were producing campaigns for them, and it was a really thorough, thoughtful process.
It went on for 7 seasons, so we could spend all day sort of talking about it, but we'll just move on for it quickly.
From Miyake, we got asked by, there's a store in Paris, which I'm sure you're all aware of, called Colette. And Sarah approached us as well. She'd seen the work, and she was like, I love what you guys are doing. I'd love you to do something special. It's my 5th birthday, and you could take over the store. I'll fund it. You could make images. You can make a book. You can do whatever you want. So we, again, embarked on an exploration and curated a bunch of images and, celebrated Colette's 5th birthday. Off the back of that, the communications director for Cartier contacted us. We were still in Paris with a terrible hangover the day after. This hell of a party that Sarah had thrown. And we got a call off our agent at about 10 a.m. in the morning saying that we had to go to a meeting, really urgently with Cartier, because they needed to talk to you about a project. And we're like, can't you just delay this? It's like we are completely hangover.
Yeah, we felt worse than we do this morning. It was, yeah.
We sort of went to this meeting with sunglasses on and lots of paracetamol, and it was like a dream job given to us. They were like, we've been searching to make something that defined the 5 fragrances for Cartier, but we didn't want to just repeat communication where it's traditional, it sort of leans back to the past. We would like to give you guys the project. You've got carte blanche. You can do whatever you want. The only thing we want back from you is magic.
Yeah, I think what's important as well is this is pre-digital. So what you're seeing right now is exactly what we were getting on the negative, on the emulsion. It's all in camera. It's, we're in a dark studio for 5 days messing around with just bits and bobs, and these images start, and we didn't think we were going to sell it to them either. We don't sell it as in, that sort of straightforward, but it was quite interesting when they actually...
I think in those days we didn't really care or think about it.
No.
There's something to be said about youth, or kind of, because you don't really think about what you're doing, you just do it, and The older you get, the more you process and analyze what you do. So if there's a word of advice to any of you out there, don't overthink it, just do it. So we just went and did it. We made these images, we presented them, and they loved it. And, it's just a testament to kind of, I think, when myself and Nick got together and we look at image making in a way where I think, invention and creating a visual emotion to telling stories through imagery, through films, through a combination of those things, are quite important in this day and age than ever before. In an age when there is so much information, I think it's probably more important than ever before to experiment and explore these things. We then we thought it'd be important to share one of our first big films that we got commissioned to do, which was BMW, well, an ad agency, WCRS in London, came to us and said, "We would like you to write a treatment for the new BMW ad." And we were like, "What's that?"
Yeah, but let's backtrack a bit as well. We'd been asked prior to this about 14 times by the agencies to sort of do car campaigns. So we never got any car campaigns, so we never trusted the process. So we were shooting a Levi's campaign at the time, weren't we? And we said, if they really want us to do it, they'll turn up at 8 a.m. in the morning, won't they, before we shoot? So we got them down, and then we still further didn't trust the process. So because when you have to write a treatment for a commercial, you have to give all your ideas away, basically. So we thought, well, if we don't write anything down or we don't physically put anything down, so we videoed ourselves and put it on a DVD because we thought, well, that's harder to copy because most people don't know what to do.
Yeah, we were completely paranoid at the time. Like, our ideas were our magic as such, which I think one should still be. I think you should still have that approach. But I think the world's changed in that sense.
So let's show the BMW film because it's just a quick minute. And
the thing to mention is that we will be introducing a collaborator that we've brought with us. James Lavelle has come to Cape Town with us. So James will be coming on towards the end of our speech, and he's Ravi's surprise guest in Durban.
It's not a surprise anymore.
Well, well, we meant to announce the surprise, weren't we?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I think his name's in about 3 of these. I've just realised we're giving our whole presentation away. Yeah.
Okay, you better click on it then.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, enjoy. James scored the soundtrack for this. So just as that started, I was trying to tell you that James actually took Beethoven's Fifth and reinterpreted it, which was quite an amazing process for myself and Nick to go down, record it with a live orchestra, and then James and his team work on it and produce something which was seminal at the time from a visual and a sound point of view. The next collaboration we want to bring up is the late Alexander McQueen. We've done many, many collaborations with Lee over the years. We just want to share a few of them with him. Lee was one of the rare, exceptional creative forces that, the world was lucky and appropriate and sort of, yeah. No, in all seriousness, it always brings a bit of a lump to my throat, unfortunately, because of the tragedy and sort of the, sad death that Lee kind of had. But let's share some of the work that we did with Lee over the years, which culminated in us doing a creatively directing and doing his show for him in 2008.
Yeah, the year after we did the story we've just shown.
And Lee came down to our studio and was like, well, you guys are the kings of light. You experiment with light. And I got this really great idea. I want to do like Studio 54 hedonism with this like huge party. And we're like, oh my God, we don't know.
This was the day before we were going on holiday as well, so he completely ruined both our holidays. Because it's sort of, yeah, it was just like a creative bomb going off in our head.
And we were like, well, we don't actually know what to do. So we spent the entire holiday thinking about Studio 54, hedonism, and how we could visually bring that to life.
I'd come up with this idea that some sort of disco ball sort of opens up and sort of segments, and it was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was bloody awful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we even made a scale model, and we were quite prepared to even risk showing Lee the model, and then he turns down, as Lee did. He always changed his mind at the 11th hour, and he rocked up at the studio after our holidays, and he was like, right, I've changed my mind about Studio 54. We're going to make a bird. So can you do that out of light? And we were like, absolutely. It was like, great. And that was it. From there on, we went into production design. We worked with a fantastic guy called Joseph Bennett, who we do a lot of work with now, one of the great production designers. And we came up with this concept of a bird of light and using VersaTube, which we were using a lot at the time in our photography and our filmmaking, as light sources, which today, again, is very common practice, but at the time...
At the time, no one had done anything
no one was really doing that. So it took us about 6 months to conceive this, work out where we were going to put the light.
We had to build a 14-minute film that ran through the whole thing as well, because the whole thing turned from a bird into a butterfly into a skull right through the 14 minutes.
So it was kind of working through these animations, production design, getting it to Paris, trying to do the animations, and kind of hoping and praying it would all come out at the end, which it did. The next collaboration we want to share with you is Massive Attack. Now, I think Robin and Dee were in Cape Town, was it 2 years ago, Ravi? Yeah. So, again, Massive Attack are one of the all-time greats in terms of music culture, in terms of what they've produced, and in terms of what they stand for. We've done many collaborations with them again over the years, where we've, from press to album work to kind of more art-based collaborations. And we'll share a film that we made it was either 2005 or 2006 for the ICA. What's interesting about this film was that we, at the time, were experimenting with scanning, which was still very new and basic. It was very complicated, it was very slow. But we just had this idea where we would kind of get in with scanners, get the information, and then again find a way to reappropriate the information and make something beautiful. And you'll see a direct link from the early graphic work to what we ended up creating here. But again, it was an organic project. The guys gave us carte blanche, and I think the results are
just put it on for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So we're just going to show you a small clip, because it goes on for ages. And, well, hopefully by sharing some of this stuff, if anybody's into it, they can go and check it out, or we'll show them ourselves.
We then got approached by Thames and Hudson to collaborate with a futurist, a fashion futurist called Suzanne Lee, who was a pretty remarkable designer in her own rights, but she decided to kind of become a research fellow. And was really at the forefront of many, many, many technologies that are now only starting to surface, like growing clothes and the micro aspect of where fashion was heading, et cetera, et cetera. She approached us, and she had this book that she was going to publish that she'd been working on for God knows how many years, 10 years, I think, in development and research. And we collaborated with her, made all the images that you see now, and they illustrated different subjects within the book, depicting the future of fashion.
Just a few images, but through the book, I think we made 50 pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm now going to go to one of our most prolific collaborations, and it continues today. Just before we came last week, we shot Bjork's new video in London, and we can't unfortunately show you much from that because it's all top secret, and there's if we showed it, we'd just let the cat out the bag. But we'd like to just share some of the moments of our collaborations with Bjork.
Yeah, we've been working with B for 12 years now. 12 years? 6 collaborations?
That's longer than that.
Yeah.
Like 14 years.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
It's making me feel old.
Well, we've been collaborating for 18 years.
I think,
so
yeah, 18 years.
We're like an old married couple, but hey, that's what makes it work.
Yeah. We live around the corner from each other. Our studio's just down the road. We live, actually, in all fairness, we live either side of a park, just to put a bit of distance.
I think, God. I think the thing that's, I'm sure you'd find interesting about Bjork is that she's an incredible character, and, I'd say myself and Nick are really privileged and fortunate to have met someone so wonderful and so colorful and so trusting within a creative process, because she always astounds in terms of her energy, her commitment, her vision, and how much she gives in terms of her creative process, and then how much she allows in terms of freedom to explore and create.
Something interesting for us as well, because Warren's already touched on it. We're always sort of looking at new things, and every time you think you've done it all, or you've done, it's like writer's block or image maker's block. I don't know what it is, but it's sort of for Bjork, we've done something which is messing with our head a bit, and the video is not only going to be a film in some sense, but it's equally we've shot it in full VR, so the whole piece is going to be in full virtual reality. And I was quite dubious, to be honest, on the whole VR thing, and all that. And I don't think until you actually enter into the fully immersive VR, you see, or you get a feeling of how incredible it actually is, and actually maybe how dangerous it is as well. So it's sort of for how it's perceived, because it's quite addictive. So on some levels, this is something. This just show you.
Well, let me just say. I mean, it's live action, 2D, 3D, and VR. So I think it's quite important because the process evolved so much, and we almost, I think, now at the second renaissance. We've sort of, the mid-90s was the complete digital revolution, and now I think we're sort of going through another revolution right now as we kind of fully embrace the third dimension. And this is a clip, so it doesn't really give anything away, but it shows the kinetic capture, and one of the aspects or the assets that we need for part of the process of making all the different elements that we're going to combine.
Yeah, because we not only did it in a filmic sense, we've also used photogrammetry as well, which is a
scanning process.
We'll get onto a bit later.
Once you fell out of love, oh, our love couldn't carry you, and I didn't.
I'm going to stop it there, actually, because it goes on.
No, well, it's highly sensitive, but I think it was just important to share with you guys because you can see the process and see a little bit of what we're talking about. Right, Erebus. This is a collaboration that was initially commissioned by the British Arts Council, and the resident choreographer for the Sadler's Wells Theatre in London was Russell Malafant, and he approached us to collaborate with him on his then current Rodin project. We, like most of our projects, submerged fully into it, and it became a very, very big sort of thing that we entered into and explored subject matter that was appropriate to kind of our vision, but equally went on a journey again with James Lavelle doing the music, and which is a very, very special soundtrack. So we'll show a small piece from the film, but you should go and check it out if you want to see the, the entire piece, because it's a very special score and it's a great film. We ended up showing the film in Preez, London, 2 years ago, and we took over London Newcastle Gallery, and we had an installation called The Gates of Hell on the outside, and then we had the film and a bunch of artwork that you've just seen.
I'll just show you a few clips from it. We can't show it all, but it's...
Thank you.
It's actually 6 different chapters over 14 minutes, and as you get deeper into it, it's sort of, we were heavily influenced by the work of Rodin and the psychological approach that he had to his work, and I suppose in a way it's sort of a response to that.
Iris is probably the leading conceptual fashion designer after the late Alexander McQueen to show in Paris Fashion Week now. And we've been collaborating with Iris for the last 3 years on her campaigns. And we've made a film with her. And we leave from South Africa, we go straight to Paris, and we work on her next collection. She shows on Wednesday next week. Iris is an incredibly inspirational designer because she's at the forefront of all technologies, collaborating very closely with a great artist called Philip Beasley, who we're going to do a collaboration with later on in the year as well. A lot of 3D printing, a lot of immersive new technology is going into Iris's vision. And she's an absolute sweetheart and an amazing, amazing designer. I saw Rachel last night. I don't know if she's in the audience here, but she's the features writer for Creative Review and wonderful person. We did a project with Creative Review. Paul Pensome, who's the art director, commissioned us to do the cover story for the last annual. We again embarked on a process which took about 9 months with conversations between myself and Nick and Paul, and a process where we use photogrammetry to take Daria Werbury, who's probably at that stage in her career is the biggest supermodel in the world. I'm sure you're all familiar who she is. And we asked Daria if she'd come to London and shoot this project with us, which she did. And worked with an incredibly good animator called Matt at a very, very small company called Analog, which have just started up in London. And we made a piece called Aleph. And again, this was all about the process and challenging the boundaries of how you make images and films and, combining different elements for an end result. Thank you.
Okay. Right, the reason we're here.
Yeah. So we sort of been getting quite bored of late, and our editorial contributions have been we've sort of been waning off with certain aspects of the traditional sort of media that we were contributing. So myself and Nick just decided to launch our own publication. And that's going to be published, the full volume will be published in April 2016.
We're going to show
we spoke to Ravi, we spoke to Ravi about this, and through our own, I apologize.
That's the tamer version.
So we spoke to Ravi, and for whatever reason, we were actually going to get the whole thing printed and published now, but we, through other commitments and commercial sort of stuff that we were doing, we've lagged behind by a couple of months. So I think it's Friday, am I correct, Ravi? We have
a surprise.
Published a teaser, which is, I'd say, a third of the publication that's going to come out, and Ravi very kindly has printed that for us and will be given away on Friday. Yes, thank you, Ravi.
But it was quite interesting because when Ravi came over to see us, it was that Kickstarter. We had all these ideas for such a long time, and sometimes you need a deadline. A deadline forces the issue, and I think it's by part of doing what we're doing right now today. It's actually really opened us up to a whole new body of and way of working. And
okay, let's take it through the publication.
We'll quickly go James through it. During James on, talk about Wicked Pixels helping on this.
Okay, yes. A big, massive thank you to Craig Vessels, who's Wicked Pixels Cape Town. Incredibly talented man, and his team that have worked on producing these images with us. So, homegrown completely. Big up to Craig.
I'm just going to flick through them, guys, because we're serious that this says 000. And what we've done through the process is just we've worked with various collaborators from Rebecca Louise Law, the installation flower artist, to the stylist who worked with us on these pictures, Anna Trevelyan, who's insane as a stylist, real sort of, again, homegrown sort of London talent, moved to New York, doing really well. Worked on this piece with us. I was questioned about this piece by my mother last week. She said, "Why the octopus, son?" My dad just smiled.
No comments.
But we know we love defamiliarization, we love shape, form, the way things can be abstracted. Okay. New pieces that we've been doing with Bjork. Another great stylist that we're working with called Karen Clarkson.
So this is all very, very new work that you are seeing for the first time. No one else has seen this.
Yeah.
And
incredible concept artist called Alex Noble, who sketched the whole vision and then came to us, and then we brought it to life in photography.
So with no further ado, I'd like to welcome one of our longest-standing collaborators, James Lavelle, to come and join us on stage. Sorry, James, we're going on like rabbits.
Time's up, supposedly, so I'm a very quick special guest.
Yeah, come on.
The last of the dysfunctional family, I think.
Exactly. We are the dysfunctional. For those who don't know much about James, he's an extraordinary curator and collaborator. He started MoWax when he was 16. He has created some of the greatest music and music videos of our time, and recently curated Meltdown, which is a heritage of Yoko Ono, David Bowie, and the lot, and is in the process of curating the Stanley... Should I not release that yet?
We're working on something interesting.
Yeah.
The secret cannot be revealed yet, but... No! Nearly.
So, again, Ravi was very kind and very sort of helpful in bringing part of these collaborations to life, and he was like, guys, let's make a poster, let's release a piece of music, and go in and create some magic in the name of Design Indaba. And I have to again say thank you so much for supporting the vision and the talent and making stuff happen, Ravi.
So we've started working on a new series of pictures with James. And in a weird sort of way, it's sort of, again, it's quite free. It's a response to him, his music, and I suppose what we're all feeling at the moment.
Well, we started working together a long time ago. I've known Warren for nearly 20 years, and we originally started working with Warren and Nick in the early days with MoWax, and then throughout the project that I do called Uncle. And from the second album, we started doing photography and building on those ideas until the last album that came out about 5 years ago, where Warren and Nick actually did the entire artwork of the record. But we always sort of have these moments where we kind of go off, do our things, come back together, and we start trying, sort of a bit of a think tank. We'll sit down, we'll talk about what we're into, what we're doing. I come from a sort of culture of collaging, originally being a DJ, having a record label, and from that we sort of built, you built a culture of working with musicians, artists. Coming from hip-hop, it was very much about the whole identity, the language, the visual identity, etc. And so we taking that way of working into our process. We sit down, we talk about what we're inspired by, and for instance, with something like this, I've just started working on my new record. So we're talking about that, trying to find a new identity. The fact that on this record, it's me I've always partnered with people in the past. This is a record that I'm making on my own in that way, and so wanted to try and kind of find a new identity for what I was doing and this record, but again, sort of work in progress. So that's the imagery that we are giving on Friday, and some was shown. This imagery that you're seeing was for the last record. And a lot of, records to me are like diaries, so it's about how you feel at the time, and the last record was very much coming out of an era where I'd worked with Futura 2000, coming from street art. I'd worked with 3D from Massive Attack, again, who'd come out of street art, the whole kind of more coming from the hip-hop side of things. I wanted to create something which wasn't so much the sort of boys with toys, something where the records were more live, there was a more rock and roll element to what was going on, mixed with electronica. And so the images you just saw were trying to was a reaction to what one had done in the past. And it's sort of always like that. You kind of react to, where you're going, where you see yourself, So the record where we've created new work is sort of about, where one's going. And again, it's a sort of diary of your feeling, experience, and emotion,
We've done quite a few.
Done quite a few music videos with James. So let's show.
I'm just going to show you a clip from The Runaway.
I mean, that was an amazing kind of, it came out of a shoot that we did for a single off the record, and it was part of the same shoot, but it was one of those amazing moments where we shot something, it didn't quite fit for what we were doing in the main body of work, and suddenly we had a new piece of work. And that's what's always great when you're working with people like Warren and Nick, is you start with something, you have an idea, and then how that grows and where that goes is always quite amazing, and you tend to come out with quite a lot of different things out of that process. And I think what's important about the relationship to me is the fact that music to me is always essential about identity. And I think when you see the work that Warren and Nick have done, they've worked with some of the best artists in that way. When you talk about bands like Massive Attack or Bjork, we all came from a culture in the 90s where video, photography and music coming together, but in a kind of lunatics running the asylum way. We kind of got to take over. We were young. We were a generation growing up on Star Wars, on hip hop, on all of these things, and we were kind of given the freedom to be creative, and that to me is the sort of what one strives for now, is to be able to constantly search and create a unique individual identity, to be able to create your own universe is what inspires me, inspires us, and I think it's very important in a world we live in now where, especially in the music business, everything is thrown at you. It's very cheap. Image, especially video. Video has really gone down, the way that the attention to detail on video and things that are made. So, we do this in a very personal but DIY way, but it's very much about creating something which is ours and how we, see the world and how we look at both, the politics of making things with the technology and how we put that all together.
Yeah, and so that I think also so we don't become disconnected. I think that's a really important thing. I think more than ever before, I think you have to strive to go back into the craft, make things tangible, cross-pollinate the mediums, because the uncanny valley is there. Repulsion towards man and machine is starting to happen. There's so much that is written and theorized about that at the minute, but in reality, it is starting to happen. You see a massive trend coming back to vinyl, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's really important that you have a process and that there's a human aspect to that process as much as there is the wonderful opportunities that technology and the digital domain can offer up.
So we'll go out on a piece that we did for James for the opening of Meltdown. It's called Worship. It's a lovely balance of technology and emotion. We wanted to create a universe as a master painting.
Come on, you can geek out now. Tell them how many.
It's the biggest particle render ever made in London, and it took months. It was so painful.